I never thought the sound of a poker chip hitting a felt table could make me physically nauseous. For most people, that sound evokes luxury, excitement, maybe the tension of a Hollywood movie. For me, it is now the sound of fear. What I'm about to tell you today isn't a story I read on an internet forum or an exaggerated urban legend. It is what I lived through during the 3 longest weeks of my life working inside an underground casino, a place that doesn't exist on any map, that pays no taxes, and where the only law that rules is the law of the strongest. If you think you know how the gambling world works because you've seen movies about Las Vegas or visited your local city casino, believe me, you have no idea. In legal casinos, there are cameras, there are regulations, there is an illusion of safety. In the place where I was, if you won too much, the problem wasn't that they'd politely ask you to leave. The problem was whether you'd make it to your car. It all started in the most innocent way possible, as the worst mistakes usually do. I needed money fast, not for vices, but to pay off accumulated debts. An old acquaintance from the gym, a guy we'll call Marcos, noticed my desperation. Marcos always had money, wore designer clothes, but you never knew exactly what he did for a living. One day, after training, he told me he knew a place that paid $500 a night just to serve drinks and keep my mouth shut. $500 a night, cash, tax-free. My brain did the math quickly. In 2 weeks, I'd be debt-free. I didn't ask questions. I didn't ask about a contract or the hours or the exact location. I just said yes. The first night was a warning I decided to ignore. They told me to meet them in a shopping mall parking lot at 10 at night. Marcos showed up in a black van with tinted windows. They asked me to leave my mobile phone in my car. That was the first red flag. Nobody today asks you to disconnect from the world unless what you were about to see shouldn't be recorded. I got in the van and they blindfolded me. They said it was standard protocol for the client's security. My heart was beating so hard I could feel the thumping in my throat, but the promise of the $500 kept me in the seat. We drove for about 40 minutes. By the turns and the feel of the asphalt, I sensed we left the city for an industrial zone or maybe a half-built housing development on the outskirts. When the van stopped and they took off the blindfold, we were in the basement of what looked like an abandoned logistics warehouse. On the outside, it was rust and neglect. On the inside, after passing through 2 reinforced steel doors and a humiliating physical pat-down by 2 guys who looked like brick walls, the world changed. It was like entering a parallel dimension. Red velvet carpets, chandeliers that looked like they cost more than my house, and solid mahogany gaming tables. But there was something in the air that made it different from a real casino. It wasn't that smell of expensive air freshener and AC. It smelled of stale tobacco, cold sweat, and even if it sounds poetic, it smelled of danger. My job was simple: be invisible. They gave me a black vest and a tray. You serve, you collect empty glasses, and you clean ashtrays. If you hear something, you haven't heard it. If you see something, you haven't seen it. And under no circumstances do you speak to the players unless they ask you for a drink. If you break these rules, you don't get paid. If you break them a lot, we have a problem. The manager, a short man with a scar crossing his eyebrow, didn't smile once. That first night, I understood the dynamic of the place. The clients weren't drunken tourists. There were 3 types of profiles. First, the degenerate addicts who were already banned from legal casinos, people with vacant eyes playing with palpable desperation. Second, career criminals who needed to launder money or gamble cash they couldn't put in a bank. And third, and this was what surprised me most, respectable people. I saw a local politician. I saw a famous businessman from the real estate sector. People who couldn't afford to be seen in a public casino losing large sums of money. Here, privacy was total, but the price was safety. The first thing that truly scared me was the credit system. In a legal casino, if you run out of money, you go to the ATM or you go home. Here, there was the office. It was a room at the back with one-way mirror glass. When a player lost all their cash and desperation took over, a waiter would make a subtle gesture pointing towards the office. I saw men go in with gold watches and come out pale, holding an envelope but with their souls mortgaged. What they signed in there weren't bank promissory notes. They were sentences. The interest rates, from what I could overhear in a whispered conversation between two guards, were 20% weekly. And the collateral wasn't a mortgage, it was their physical integrity. One night, I saw a young kid, not much older than me, lose $50,000 in a hand of baccarat. He froze, staring at the cards as if expecting them to magically change. He started to cry, not a silent cry, but audible sobs. In a normal casino, security would come to calm him down or escort him out. Here, the dealer simply watched him with indifference while shuffling. 2 minutes later, 2 security guys grabbed him by the armpits. They didn't take him to the street, they took him toward the office. I didn't see him again that night, but when I passed near the door an hour later to deliver a round of whiskeys, I heard a dry thud and a muffled scream. My hands shook so much I spilled part of the drink on the tray. Nobody looked at me. It was part of the ambiance. But the most disturbing thing wasn't the violence, it was the cheating. I always thought the house always wins was a figure of speech about statistics. In this place, it was literal. During my second week, I was assigned to the VIP zone, a private room where high-stakes poker was played. The blinds were $1,000 and $2,000. That was where I saw how the scam really worked. There was a regular player, a fat, bald guy who always wore dark sunglasses, whom they called the engineer. The engineer won suspiciously often. One night, while cleaning a nearby table, I noticed something. The dealer at that table had a strange way of holding the deck. His index finger rested on the top corner of the cards in an unnatural way. It wasn't a tick, it was a signal. Later, watching discreetly, I noticed that the engineer wasn't looking at his cards, he was looking at the dealer's hands. They were in cahoots. The dealer was marking the high cards or doing bottom dealing, dealing cards from the bottom of the deck when necessary. They were fleecing a construction tycoon who that night lost nearly $300,000. The terrifying part is that the businessman, drunk and furious, started accusing them of cheating. He was right, but in an underground casino, being right is dangerous. When the businessman stood up and flipped the table, the music stopped. The silence that followed was louder than any gunshot. The floor manager walked over, whispered something in the businessman's ear, and the man, who a second ago was red with rage, turned white as a sheet. He sat down, apologized, signed a check, and left. I never knew what they told him, but I am sure they mentioned his family. The slot machines also had their secret. In the main room, there was a row of slots that looked antique, the mechanical kind. Many players preferred these machines because they believed they were more honest than the digital ones. How wrong they were. One night, after closing, I stayed to help clean and saw one of the technicians open one of the machines. He wasn't repairing it, he was manually adjusting the reels. I naively asked what he was doing, and he laughed. "We're tightening the screws," he told me. He explained, with the arrogance of someone who knows I won't tell, that these machines had a modified chip. They could control them remotely. If they saw a player was about to leave because they were losing too much, they gave him a medium prize to hook him again. The near miss was programmed. Those times you see the 2 sevens align and the third falls just one slot below, it isn't chance. It is designed for your brain to release dopamine so you think you're close. But in this place, they took that to the extreme. If someone won a jackpot by mistake or pure statistical luck, the machine had a kill switch. The machine would simply reboot, simulating a technical error. "Power failure, the play is void," the cards would say. And if you complained, they pointed to the sign at the entrance, "The house reserves the right of admission and final decision on any dispute." And you already knew what a dispute meant here. Toward the end of my third week, the tension in the atmosphere changed. You could sense nervousness among the bosses. More weapons started becoming visible. Before, security carried guns hidden under jackets. Now I saw pistol grips poking out without concealment. Rumors circulated that another gang wanted the territory, or that someone had talked to the police. The paranoia was contagious. They started frisking employees not just when entering, but also when leaving. They checked our shoes, our mouths, the hems of our pants to make sure we weren't stealing chips. One night, I found a $100 chip on the bathroom floor. My first instinct, the human instinct for financial survival, was to pocket it. $100 was a good tip. But I remembered the story of a previous waiter who, they said, had his fingers broken for stealing a bottle of vodka. I left the chip where it was. Leaving the bathroom, the head of security was there, watching me. I'm convinced the chip was a test. If I had taken it, I wouldn't be here telling you this.
The event that made me quit everything happened on a Friday. It was the busiest night. The room was full, the smoke was thick, and the money was flying. There was a craps game in the center that was attracting a lot of attention. A player, a very young Asian guy, was on an incredible streak. He had turned $5,000 into $200,000 in a matter of an hour. The crowd was screaming, the energy was electric, but I looked at the bosses. They weren't happy. They were making calls. The pit boss approached the table and switched the dice. He said it was routine procedure. The kid threw the new dice, 7. He lost. He bet big again, 7. He lost. In 10 minutes, the streak completely reversed. It was clear the dice were loaded. But the kid didn't stop. He started betting watches, gold chains. When he lost everything, he took out the keys to a sports car, a Porsche, he said. He put it on the table. He threw the dice. He lost. The kid stood staring at the dice, grabbed one, and shouted that they weighed funny. He tried to put the die in his pocket to prove it. It was chaos. 3 guards jumped on him. They beat him in front of everyone. It wasn't a struggle to escort him out. It was a corrective beating. Blood stained the green felt of the table. The music didn't stop. People stepped back a little. Some looked on with horror, but others, the true compulsive gamblers, simply waited for them to remove the obstacle to keep playing. Seeing that indifference, seeing how addiction nullified the humanity of those present, broke me. In that moment, I understood that this place wasn't just an illegal business, it was a slaughterhouse for souls. That night, when the shift ended, I collected my $500. My hands were shaking as I took the money. I felt like it was dirty and stained with that kid's blood and the desperation of everyone who passed through the office. I told Marcos I couldn't come back, that my mother had gotten sick and I had to take care of her. A cheap excuse. Marcos stared at me for a few seconds that felt like hours. "Are you sure that's the reason?" he asked me. I nodded, trying to keep calm. "Fine, take care of your mother, and remember, what happens in the basement stays in the basement. If anything leaks, we'll know it was you." That threat has echoed in my head every day since then. For weeks, I watched the rearview mirror of my car, expecting to see the black van. I changed my phone number. I moved apartments. What I saw in that underground casino taught me a brutal lesson about human nature and the lines people are willing to cross for money. I saw how luck was manipulated, how weakness was exploited, and how a human life was worth less than a red plastic chip. Legal casinos are designed to make money, yes, and the odds are against you, but at least there are rules. In the underground, you are the prey from the moment you cross the door. There is no glamour, there is no luck, there are only predators and victims. If anyone ever invites you to a private game or an exclusive place that doesn't appear on Google Maps, run and don't look back, because curiosity can cost you much more than the money in your wallet. It can cost you your freedom, your integrity, or your life. Now that you know what happens in the shadows, it's time you understand how the traps work, even in the places where you think you're safe. If what happens in the underground left you frozen, wait until you see what happens in broad daylight that nobody tells you about. You have to see the video where I infiltrated a legal casino to tell you the 50 secrets they hide right in your face. Click here to watch it right now and discover the other side of the coin.